some very strange and unpleasant activities have been going on.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're discussing some of the most unsettling moments from the life of the former prince, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor.
Yeah, this was at Ghislaine Maxwell's apartment. Apparently Epstein took the photo.
Giving a tour of Buckingham Palace in 2002.
At one point she took in Kevin Spacey, and the two of them sat on thrones and had their pictures taken.
No one else had that access apart from members of the royal family.
Andrew isn't the only person in his old friendship group who has fallen from grace. Public perceptions of the once acclaimed actor Kevin Spacey became overwhelmingly negative after a scandal a few years ago. Andrew was also an infamous friend of Jeffrey Epstein and his wife Ghislaine Maxwell.
Myself and my colleagues were under the perception that Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell were in an intimate relationship.
Back in 2002, Andrew gave a tour to all three of these individuals, plus former President Bill Clinton. Only a few photos have been released from the visit, but it feels highly cursed to look back at it with hindsight. The fact that Andrew was such a good friend to these three contentious individuals is pretty disturbing.
Former President Bill Clinton and Britain's Prince Andrew are two of Jeffrey Epstein's most high-profile associates, publicly named in the more than 900 pages of mostly unredacted documents released Wednesday.
Epstein's butler.
Juan Alessi was the house manager for more than a decade. He told the jury Ghislaine Maxwell was the lady of the house and slept in Epstein's bedroom.
It's common knowledge now that Jeffrey Epstein had his own private island, where it's generally believed a bunch of nefarious activities happened. On the island, Juan Alessi worked for Epstein as a sort of butler or house manager. He worked there between 1990 and 2002. And claimed he was told never to look in his boss's eyes.
Hundreds of women passed through the home while he worked there, most of them in their 20s, he said. While at the pool, Alessi testified at least 75% were topless.
One of his many dark stories claimed Andrew was a regular at the island. Apparently, he spent weeks there, where he would receive massages daily.
Also in a Florida court legal deposition, said that you visited the Palm Beach residence around 4 times a year. You got a daily massage.
4 times a year?
That was what he said in a Florida court legal deposition.
No.
The former partner of Virginia Giuffre, Tony Figueroa, was asked whether the women providing these massages were legitimate masseuses. According to him, none of them were.
Prince Andrew of the royal family had a very close relationship to Epstein, and he knows some crucial information to help bring other people down.
Walk in the park with Epstein.
The Duke of York generating a new wave of questions in what has become a sea of speculation surrounding his ties to Epstein.
While Andrew could argue he was ignorant of Epstein's dark tendencies, this argument doesn't make sense following his public conviction in 2008. 2 years later, Andrew and Epstein were pictured having a stroll in Central Park, New York. Supposedly, Andrew was staying at Epstein's fancy townhouse rather than a hotel.
You've been on his private plane.
Yes.
You've been to stay on his private island.
Yes.
You've stayed at his home in Palm Beach.
Yes.
This moment was considered disturbing all the way back in 2011, as it was public knowledge that Epstein was a criminal. It's only gotten worse with time as people have begun to realise the true extent of Epstein's deranged behaviour.
I wasn't aware when the invitation was issued what was going on in the United States. And I wasn't aware until the media picked up on it, because he never said anything about it.
He never discussed with you the fact that an arrest warrant had been issued.
No. Epstein paying off Ferguson's debts.
Several charities have cut ties with Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. This is because of an email she reportedly wrote to Jeffrey Epstein, calling him a supreme friend.
Andrew's former wife, Sarah Ferguson, has also become associated with the criminal Jeffrey Epstein. In a 2011 interview, she admitted that her ex-husband had helped her out by convincing Epstein to pay off her debts. Roughly £15,000 was paid off by him. Ferguson apologised and said she regretted getting involved with the individuals.
Telling NBC News in a statement, "As they have always been, her first thoughts are with his victims." Then added of Epstein, "Like many people, she was taken in by his lies."
She also called him a certain word that upset him, which Epstein supposedly wanted to sue her over. It's unlikely he would have had much of a case if he'd continued, as he had been convicted of the crime she was accusing him of.
Dorset released a statement saying it would be inappropriate for the Duchess of York to carry on as their patron. And then what happened was an absolute cascade of big-name charities dumping her.
Ties to gun smugglers. Andrew was employed by UK Trade and Investment, or UKTI, between 2001 and 2011.
It's a big success.
My girls! You know, Granny calls me the palace entrepreneur. I've got big plans.
He eventually stepped down after the sheer quantity of controversial connections he made. Andrew was claimed to be a close friend of Libyan dictator Gaddafi. Alongside this, he had links to Tarek Katini, an infamous Libyan gun smuggler. We know this for certain because there are pictures of the smuggler at Princess Eugenie's wedding. Katuni also said in an interview with a newspaper it was a nice wedding.
Princess Beatrice is finally ready to share her wedding day plans after months of tension following her father, Prince Andrew's scandal.
There's also evidence to suggest Katuni gave Princess Beatrice an £18,000 diamond necklace. A few months later, Andrew lobbied a certain company in the smuggler's favour.
Why would people not believe that you were there?
I'm sorry, why would?
Endorsing the Bahraini dictatorship.
I would like to welcome His Royal Highness Prince Andrew, Duke of York, to the Kingdom of Bahrain.
Bahrain is a small island nation located in the Persian Gulf. For years, it has been criticised for its numerous human rights abuses. Human Rights Watch said they had a dismal record.
They say that they've been targeted by thugs wanting revenge for the violence by the military during its crackdown on the Pearl Roundabout protesters.
It began earning this reputation roughly in 2010, when the Arab Spring spread to their island. The government retaliated with extreme violence. This made it massively controversial when Andrew went there in 2014 as part of a delegation. This was widely seen as an endorsement of Bahrain's dictatorship.
There will be some, though, who say, why is Britain going into partnership with a country that has been heavily criticised in the past for its human rights record, where there still isn't anything like democracy here?
With how negatively the public views him now, some believe he could run away to Bahrain to escape the public eye. Air Miles Andy and subsequent cover-up. Andrew has had a fair few nicknames in his lifetime. An unflattering example is Air Miles Andy, which is what the press called him when he was still employed by UKTI.
I was cannon fodder, basically, and there was no way that I did not give an instruction to anybody. I was purely there to be instructed and to get on with it.
He wasn't paid for the job, but he went on a bunch of expenses-paid delegations. Andrew was also accused of going on holiday using taxpayer money.
It's disappointing because you think that for years, has he been squandering taxpayers' money?
One newspaper said he spent £626,000 in 2010 as the trade envoy. If you want to know the full extent of his trips between 2001 and 2011, you'll need to wait until 2065, which is when the Foreign Office will declassify those documents.
When it comes to looking at the lease and comes to looking at how Prince Andrew has been able to live the life of a prince at the taxpayer's expense when he's embarrassed the king, and when his behaviour has gone completely contrary to British values.
Controversial friends during the UKTI era.
And I believe that very, very strongly, that we have a sense of duty and a sense of responsibility. I've taken on the business community in this country as a champion for them.
We've already covered his ties to controversial Libyans, but during his UKTI career, he made a ton of questionable friends. Of course, there was Epstein, but he also became buddies with Ilham Aliyev, who has been the president of Azerbaijan since 2003.
We'll cover a great many issues. There'll be some political issues that are quite definitely at the top of the agenda. But there are other issues. There's water, there's food, there's leadership.
This is another nation which is regularly criticised for human rights abuses.
This is not hearsay. This was witnessed and filmed by the BBC.
I doubt this witness.
Some sources claim the pair met at least a dozen times by 2014. Additionally, Andrew once hosted a lunch for Saka El Materi, who was a member of the old Tunisian government. That was until the Tunisian Revolution of 2011, which forced Materi to flee the country. Randy Andy interview. Long before Andrew was ever tied to Jeffrey Epstein, he'd earned himself the horrific nickname Randy Andy.
Because you were perceived by the public as being the party prince. Was that something you shared?
Well, I think that's also a bit of a stretch.
This was brought up in an old interview from the 80s on a talk show. The young prince gets uncomfortably flirty with the interviewer, which is especially nauseating to watch today. He claimed to have had this nickname since he was a teenager. When Emily Maitlis asked him in that famous interview about being considered the party prince, he expressed confusion at this sentiment.
I never have really partied. I was single for quite a long time, in the early 80s.
It's a total 180 from how his younger self responded, who seemed delighted to be called Randy Andy.
Randy Andy.
Don't. What? No, I just don't like thinking of him that way. Oh, it's just a stupid nickname. I know, it's so cringe.
Remember him telling us how girls used to scream his name in the streets?
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Inviting Epstein and Maxwell to Princess Beatrice's birthday.
Prince Andrew hosted the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein as well as Ghislaine Maxwell and Harvey Weinstein at the Royal Lodge, the publicly owned home where he effectively lives rent-free after he paid for its renovations. Well, this image shows them all at birthday celebrations at the mansion in 2006.
An arrest warrant was issued to Epstein in 2006. 2 months later, he turned up at the 18th birthday party of Princess Beatrice, Andrew's daughter.
In July, he was invited to Windsor Castle to your daughter Princess Beatrice's 18th birthday. Why would you do that?
Because I was asking Ghislaine.
Not only this, but also in attendance were Ghislaine Maxwell, plus the widely hated Harvey Weinstein. Andrew defended himself by saying he had no clue Epstein was a criminal when he invited him.
He never discussed with you the fact that an arrest warrant had been issued. No. So he came to that party knowing police were investigating him.
It would be easier to forgive him for this mistake if he hadn't kept hanging out with him after his 2008 conviction. This makes us believe that either Andrew is an appalling judge of character or he's not a nice guy himself.
Yes, I think there are one or two things that one thinks, oops, perhaps I shouldn't have done that, and perhaps, in years to come one will look back on them and say, I learnt from that.
Were there any particularly disturbing moments we forgot to mention? Let us know in the comments below.